And we're live. It's time for another great episode of the Beach Brothers Show. I'm Seko Varner, your producer. To my side is the good brother Conrad Chesviner. How you doing, Con?
Doing spectacular, I would say.
Beautiful. And we have two guests for us who are running for that delegate seat that Joe Lindsey recently vacated. So I'll let them take over, and you can take over, and I'm going to step to the back and do some producing stuff. But gentlemen,
All
welcome
right.
to the show.
Yep. Welcome. I'll lead off by saying that tonight's special guests are Richard James and Mario Portillo. Both men are seeking nomination to a party to run for Virginia's House District 90. Mr. James for the Democrat Party and Mr. Portillo for the Republican Party. Both of these primaries caucuses are this weekend, December 5th for the Democrats and December 6th for the Republicans. The Beach Brothers do admit we also reached out to the campaign of Angela Williams-Graves, Ward 7 Councilwoman of Norfolk, who is also seeking the Democratic nomination from the December Firehouse primary caucus. But the invitation to the forum was respectfully declined. The Beach Brothers admit reaching out to the campaign of Sylvia Bryant, running for the Republican nomination in the respective December Firehouse primary, but we weren't able to fully connect. I think her profile deleted me or something to that effect, and the invitations had been left on read. So we attempted to bring all runners on, and thusly we warmly welcome Mr. Richard James, candidate for the Democrat nomination this Saturday, and Mr. Mario Portillo, candidate for the Republican nomination this Sunday. We thank you both for gracing the Beach Brothers Show with your presence. And this is a business and political show based in Virginia Beach, but we reach and influence across the 757 into the whole state. So use this opportunity as wisely and charmingly as possible as we go into this weekend. So first off, I would like you guys to sort of introduce yourselves. Who might you be? What do you do? What are your community interests in Southampton Roads? And why seek the nomination to enter the race for Virginia's House District 90? And let's begin with Mr. James.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everyone. My name is Richard James. I'm the candidate for the House of Delegates for the 90th District, covering the city of Norfolk and part of the city of Virginia Beach. I'm a Norfolk native, born here in Norfolk. I graduated from Moray High School in 1981. At the age of 16. The day I turned 17, I joined the United States Army to become an airborne combat medic. My first duty station was in the 2nd Infantry Division in the Republic of Korea. Then I went to airborne school and went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, where I served in the America's Guard of Honor with the 82nd Airborne Division as an airborne combat medic. I did 6 years as a combat medic with the elite 82nd Airborne Division. And then when I got out of the military, I became a member of the Norfolk Police Department, where I served on the police department for 27 years. While in the police department, I obtained my bachelor's degree in administration, a master's degree in government, and a legal education. And once I retired after 27 years, I became the department head for criminal justice and forensic science at Tidewater Community College. For the last 4 years, I've also been serving as the Community Outreach Director for the Senate of Virginia, covering the 5th Senate District, which includes the 90th District here in Norfolk and Virginia Beach. And so I'm excited about a spirited conversation about the things that we are interested in. One of my main goals is, of course, making sure that the state has a fiscal responsibility in terms of how we spend our money, and also to make sure that we recover as quickly as possible from COVID-19 for our businesses, our children, and our schools can get back to normal. So I'm going to save some time for the other guests, and so I'm excited for being here and answering some great questions.
Mr. Portillo, let's hear about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me also. Well, I'm actually an immigrant. I came to the United States at age 10, did not know any English, became a citizen at age 15 and joined the Navy at age 17. I served for 26 years and retired as a Navy Chief Hospital Corpsman. I served throughout the country, and actually throughout the world. I was stationed in Adak, Alaska. I was in Hawaii, all along the West Coast. And I deployed to Okinawa, Japan, to Tokyo, to the Horn of Africa, the Middle East. And I was actually boots on ground combat with the Army in 2010. I served with the Marines for 9 years. I served with the Seabees for 2 years. I was on 3 ships, 2 amphibious ships and a carrier. And I also assisted with recovery after Katrina and also the Banda Aceh tsunami. So I worked with a lot of different agencies, to include FEMA, World Health Organization, Center for Disease Control, local and state health departments. And so I think that really prepares me to what's going on right now. Just like Mr. James said, COVID is a priority and it's affecting all our communities, not only our businesses, but also our children. You know, education is important, and a lot of our children are not getting that quality interaction with each other. We have parents that have to work, so they leave their kids at home alone. And also we have to identify that some of these kids don't have the ability to connect to schools and get the proper learning. So my priorities also be, COVID, businesses, education.
All right, we'll reach back to more in-depth looking at each other's priorities in a little bit. I do like the fact that we have 2 veterans on who have very solid resumes going into this possible representation of the district. And considering this is a primary caucusy type process so far, have there been any events or any things that have gotten in the way of a smooth process? Let's start with Mr. Portillo this time.
Actually, this for me, it began right before the November election. I've actually been thinking of running for over a year. And I was actually fortunate that the Norfolk Republican Party actually contacted me in regards to the position. And so I'm honored. I hit the ground running, and I've been running ever since. And I'm just enjoying the whole process. I'm getting a lot of great support from the party and from people. And so I'm really excited just to be part of this.
That's cool. That's cool. Mr. James.
I've been involved in local politics for probably the last 15 years here or better. I was the vice chair of the 90th district for the Norfolk Democratic Party for several years in the past, and now as a candidate for the House of Delegates, it's important for us that we get someone in office that can hit the ground running on day one, because we have the primary, of course, this weekend. However, the election is going to be on January the 5th, and then the person that's going to fill the seat have to be able to hit the ground running on day one without any training. And I believe that I'm the only one out of all the candidates on the Democrat and Republican side that have legislative experience. I've actually written legislation in the state of Virginia, working with Senator Sproul, and I'm probably one of the only ones that can recite the rules for the General Assembly from memory. The 4 major duties, and I would challenge my opponent to do so, but I'm going to give him a break and I'm going to do it for him. There's 4 major duties of the legislator in Senate of Virginia. First is to shape and form public policy, laws, and processes that will become statutes to govern the state of Virginia. 2, to vet and elect judges to the General District Court, Circuit Court of Record, Juvenile Domestic Court, the Courts of Appeal, and the Virginia Supreme Court. 3, to approve the governor's appointments to boards and commissions, to colleges and universities, and ABC board and the like. 4, to pass an annual budget and create a fiscal policy for the entire state of Virginia. And I'm going to save you all the list of the things of how Virginia get the revenues and how much go back to localities, which is 1/3 of the revenues go back to each localities. And I can go on and on and on about that, because that's some of the things we have to know to serve in the Senate, and we have to have it in memory. all the rules. And so I'm not sure if anybody else can do that that's a candidate.
All right. All right. Now let's sort of dive into policy-based questions because you guys are looking to serve for the people regarding ideas you may have. So, Mr. James, we'll start off with you. What are the three most significant priorities for House District 90 in your eyes?
Well, the three most significant priorities for me, of course, we've already talked about it. Number one is COVID-19. And to make sure that we have a unified front in terms of attacking COVID-19 head on like it was a war. Now, under the Virginia Constitution, under Article 5 of the Virginia Constitution, only the governor can take the lead on that. As a legislator, what we can do is make sure that once the governor asks for resources in terms of financing, that the legislators can create bills that can give the localities financing to make sure that this happens. But the lead is taken by the governor, and we should all support the governor, whether we're Democrats or Republicans, to make sure we attack COVID head on. Number two, students' education. Mr. Mario mentioned that some of the challenges we have with education. One of the challenges we have is access to the internet, because everything is online learning now. The governor did talk about using bringing broadband to the state of Virginia, and my goal is to create legislation that if we're going to use taxpayers' dollars, that every resident in the state of Virginia should be able to have access to broadband for $5 or less. And that's a game changer for the state of Virginia. And then to go on from that, with the access to broadband, we can bring in more businesses that are technology centered. Because if we don't have the correct internet connections, you're not going to get the big businesses that's going to bring the jobs, that's going to be to support schools. It all ties in together. And so in Norfolk, we've lost Norfolk Southern Railroad to Atlanta, Georgia, mainly because down in Atlanta, they've learned how to work together as cities or municipalities. Where here in Norfolk and Virginia Beach are not doing a good job working together. I had an ambassador to come to my house from Washington, D.C., and we going down Newtown Road, and he saw the light rail train station because they're planning on doing business here. And he asked me, why did the train end at Newtown Road? And I said to him, because across the street is the city of Virginia Beach. He said, that means you guys are not working together as a municipality. And so that's a big downfall. We want Fortune 500 companies to come here. We need to work together like Atlanta, Georgia, and like Charleston, Charlotte, Mecklenburg, where the combined population is 1.5 to 2 million people, where we're working together and sharing resources. That's going to be the only way we're going to be able to attract the major businesses that have great jobs for our community. Otherwise, we have what we call brain drain. Our citizens are going to leave this region and go to Atlanta, Charleston, and other cities that know how to work together as a unit. That's going to be our biggest challenge. And I look forward to working with my other legislators in Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Portsmouth, and the like.
Mr. Mario, what are your three biggest visions that you would like to sort of settle with House District 90?
Well, first and foremost, like I said earlier, it was COVID. One thing that I've noticed here is there's very limited amount of testing sites. We only have 4 testing sites in the district for 80,000 people. So we have a lot of people going around that don't even know if they have it. And so one of the things that we need to implement is also a little more resources in testing. We have multiple, pharmacies, urgent care units, but we're not giving them the proper equipment for them to test. If we don't have a healthy citizens, nothing that we do, whether we improve businesses, we increase businesses, we're not going to have people to work. And so that would be my first priority, is just making sure that we're passing legislation that helps our citizens get tested if they have COVID, to be able to take either sick leave paid, and then also to help them if they have to also take care of their children while they're sick. So for example, assistance with daycare. So there's various things that we can do to help recover our people so we can recover our economy. And second, taxes. Right now, there's a plan to increase taxes to $1 billion. So what does that mean? Everything is going to go up. Tax-wise, it's going to hurt the economy more. So what you have to do is just balance that to make sure that the localities, especially here in the 90th, if we look at Norfolk and the 90th, everything on the east side of Norfolk is falling apart. Anything that the city of Norfolk gets tends to go towards the west side of Norfolk. And that is hurting our economy here. As we can see, Kmart is gone here on Military Highway. We have the Ford dealership that left and moved further down. And then, of course, we know about Janif and Military Circle Mall. And there's a lot of things that are going on, but we're not focusing primarily on the people and helping them continue to have their business open, continue to assist them when they're having trouble. And so we need to really prioritize that. Second, for me, is education. Our children are falling. And one of the things that I've talked to a lot of people, especially Latinos, here in Norfolk, I've lived here since 2006, and this is the longest I've lived anywhere. I've lived here since 06, and I love it. And my kids grew up here. My daughter started kindergarten here, and she's a sophomore at ODU now. And I see what education does with our kids. It's a good education system. Sadly, it's falling apart. I spoke with a nurse from one of the high schools, and she was saying that kids are getting depressed, they're having anxiety, and they're not getting the proper treatment. So I think that's the third thing is health care. Healthcare is very important to me also because if we don't have it, nothing that we plan, whether we want to improve the economy, we will not have the people to do the job.
All right. Now, moving on to the next question, we're going to look backwards at Delegate Joseph Lindsey, who is now going to move on to be a judge. Without bashing, because I don't like bashing in politics, could you guys sort of constructively look at maybe one thing you have liked or disliked about Mr. Lindsey? And we'll start with Mr. Portillo, working backwards to James.
Well, I can't really say anything negative about Delegate Joseph Lindsey. I mean, I don't know him personally, but I think, as we can see, politicians help politicians. He's been a delegate since 2014. And of course, the General Assembly are the ones who, of course, appoint judges. And so, what we continue doing is sending politicians to help politicians. And I'm totally against that. I just feel that if you're going to be represented in your district by a delegate, that delegate should know who you are, what you've been through, and how you think. I represent Latinos, I represent veterans, I represent disabled veterans, retirees. And so I think there's a lot of things that I can bring to the table in the General Assembly by thinking through things when legislation is being passed, how it's going to affect the working man. And so I think that's one thing that following Delegate Lindsey's track record is a lot of it left the common man out.
Mr. James, how would you look back toward Mr. Lindsey's time representing HD 90?
Well, I will go. Let me start with the last thing that he did. The last thing that Delegate Lindsey did in terms of legislation is that he is the one that submitted the bill to allow the state to make Election Day a state holiday. And that was done to make sure that voters have the opportunity to vote because of COVID-19 and some of the concerns that was made about voting. And people have to go to work. The ones that did have to have a job had to go to work. And so it became a state holiday. And then what I did after that, it was myself that argued before the Norfolk City Council to make it a local holiday for the citizens of Norfolk. And we also pushed for Virginia Beach to also make it a holiday too, to make sure that one of our most sacred duties as a citizen is to go out and vote. And so it was myself and others. My job was to argue before City Council in Norfolk. And of course, Norfolk followed the state and made Norfolk a city holiday. I want to let you know that all 97 counties and 38 cities in the state of Virginia has made Election Day a local and state holiday, except for one. And I believe that's across the water. Virginia Beach did make theirs a holiday, but it's only for this 1 year. Norfolk made it a holiday for permanently. And basically what they did was switch Lee Jackson Day with Election Day. And so it didn't cost the cities any additional amount of money.
I'd like to roll into the next question. Mr. James, you'll lead off here. In 2020, Virginia moved off of criminalizing marijuana and effectively decriminalized it. Now the governor is looking to make 2021 a strong push for marijuana legalization. As a possible member of the General Assembly representing Norfolk and Virginia Beach, what would be your thoughts on this, and also your thoughts on restitution for people who previously been affected when marijuana was criminalized?
Well, thank you for that question. I'm going to start off by saying that, one, I do agree of making misdemeanor possession of marijuana a non-criminal, maybe a civil action, not criminal. That's only for misdemeanor simple possession. I also believe that those who have misdemeanor possessions of marijuana on their records, that should be expunged as far, in the rear. My only concern about the use of marijuana is that I had an opportunity to go to Colorado years ago when the state of Colorado legalized marijuana for the FBI convention there in Colorado. And what we learned was that there were some challenges. Just because marijuana becomes legal does not mean that your employer is not going to drug test you. And so citizens need to be aware that if they use marijuana, although it's legal, or it's a civil penalty, it's a civil penalty, you can still lose your job from drug testing. And that happened in Colorado. They didn't expect it to happen. And a lot of the citizens became unemployed because just because it's legal does not mean your employer cannot drug test you. Particularly in this area where we have the service industries, we have the ports, we have a lot of people that work around machinery here. A lot of people can lose their jobs to drug testing, and I don't believe the legislation will protect you from your employer doing a drug test.
All righty. Mr. Moria, what would be your impressions?
Oh, well, I agree with Rick, but I want to add to it that not only, would businesses be allowed to do drug testing, but also if you commit another crime in the possession of marijuana, then it changes, the process. If you're caught driving under the influence, then of course you should be fined or sent to jail. But I believe I look at it more from a medicinal background. I know that a lot of people use it. They use it in their private homes. But yes, we have to make sure that the legislation is clear that states if you do this, you still have the responsibility for your job, for driving, for anything that you do with the public. And so that's important, just to make sure that it's clear so people understand what it truly means to legalize marijuana.
All right, we're going to lead off with yourself for this next question. You sort of touched on it by mentioning the Kmart on Military Highway. It represents sort of structural issues within the economy, and I know COVID-19 is doing its damage, but there's also the way the economy has been changing over the past decade or so, and it might need a possible need for state input. So the Kmart on Military Highway near the Aldi or the J&F Shopping Center, which is seemingly floundering, and then Military Circle Mall, which is completely changing and getting weaker and weaker as it seems. So this is right in the heart of HD 90. How would you like to revitalize the economy as an assembly member for this area? I'll lead off from Mr. Mario.
Well, for me, like I said, I've lived here in 2006. Kmart is literally across the street from where I live, and it's been dead for almost a decade. And we continue to see small businesses open up and close. We have a new Lidl that was just built across the street from further down from Kmart, but it's not providing the services that people need. And so one of the things that we need to do is refurbish, especially Norvian Military is the entrance to Norfolk Airport. People coming here from all over the country, that's the first thing they see. They come out from the airport, they see a dead Kmart parking lot. And so that is a very important place we need to revitalize. We need to either tear it down and allow small businesses to build there, or do like we did with the outlets, have a small storefronts that can also revitalize this area. But there's so much that we can do in the 90th. If you go up and down Little Creek, we have a lot of small businesses that are just barely hanging on because they're the only business in the area. And so we have to push harder in regards to making sure that we make businesses more approachable and open to come here so we can grow.
Mr. James, how would you like to revitalize this area of Norfolk and Virginia Beach as a representative in the state?
Well, first of all, we're not going to be able to revitalize anything until we get COVID under control. And then I want to make sure we're clear at this and make sure the citizens are clear that I think I made very clear the job of a member of the General Assembly, which is the job we're fighting for right now. The job that you're talking about to get these things done is on city council. Now, if we were running for city council, then that would be a great question for us. But as a member of the House of Delegates, we do not get involved in local development processes. That's not our job. Our job is to make sure that the citizens of the state and localities have the things they need from a state level. For an example, make sure that the interstate system is in place and is in operating condition. To make sure that 264 and 64 don't have any potholes, or when it snows, that those things are taken care of, where we can have economic progress going on, or transportation to address those transportation issues. Those are the things that we can deal with from the state level. We cannot get involved or deal with where the grocery stores go and how the parking lots look. And those things are for city council, not for members of the House of Delegates. And then on top of that, if we're going to make COVID-19 a priority and get that under control for our businesses and schools to get back on track as soon as possible, those things cost money. And you also have to understand that on the state level, unlike the federal government, we can't borrow money. We have to have a balanced budget. That's why we had a special session a couple of weeks ago, is because we can't go into a deficit. And so we can't spend money that we don't have. And so COVID has to be a priority. Yes, it does. And then along with COVID, we're not going to be able to get our schools together and our people back to work on their jobs until we get COVID under control. I don't know how else to say it. It's enemy number one right now. And so, but I want to make sure it's clear that the question you asked is basically a question for a city council member, not for a member of the General Assembly.
All right. Point taken. I'll move in now to more of something that could be state policy. A question comes from Monica Hutchinson, who is a leader within the community organizer for Family Friendly Economy Virginia. Her question is, if workers, especially essential and frontline workers, do not have the guarantee that they can take the time off to get tested and to safely quarantine, to recover or care for sick families, stay at home with children, who are virtually learning, then the lack of protection not only threatens their lives and livelihoods, but it threatens everyone around us as well. Paid leave has been shown to be one of the most effective policies to curb the spread of COVID-19. Do you support establishing a program that would give Virginians access to paid leave in this pandemic and possibly beyond? We'll lead off with Mr. James.
That is a super question, and I have put a lot of thought into that. And there's only a couple of ways that it can be done without causing your small businesses, your mom and pop businesses, from going broke. They already don't have enough money because of COVID-19 and the shutdowns, and then on top of that, they're gonna have to take more money out of their savings to pay for people to stay at home. But here's what we can do on a state level. On a state level, we can create through legislation, an insurance clearinghouse where local workers for small businesses can have a low premium insurance policy that will pay them their salary over the course of 3 weeks if there's injury to their families or a pandemic and the like. That would be affordable if everybody buy into it, and the premiums would probably be maybe $15, $20 a month, and then you won't have to take monies out of the mom and pop businesses, and then the state won't have to take money out of their coffers that they don't already have to pay for people throughout the whole entire state. Because I want to remind you, if you're talking about workers throughout the whole entire state, we're not talking about hundreds of dollars. We're talking about billions of dollars for people to be off. And then, of course, we got to have a balanced budget. And Mr. Mario already said he wants to keep taxes down low, but you'll be paying for that with taxpayer dollars. And so the best way to do it, that is going to affect where everybody can get it, where it's fair, and it's not going to cost money out of the mom and pop businesses, and the state won't have to spend money they don't have. We can create a clearinghouse insurance policy that everybody can get involved in that don't have those type of protections with their jobs, if some federal workers do, sick leave and the like, that will cover them from pandemics and the like, and they'll be able to take care of their family and children over a period of time, and it'll be affordable for everyone. That's probably the best way you can do it, unless you want to do what Mr. Mario said he doesn't want to do it and raise taxes, because somebody's got to pay for it.
All right, I'll lead off as a response from Mr. Mario. You have the opportunity as someone in the state to look at paid family leave as a policy. Would that be something you would like to do or look further into? Speak on it.
Well, I think what I alluded to earlier was, I think the priority is testing. If we're not doing proper testing, then we're going to have more people that are going to get sick. They're not going to be able to work, and then it's going to be the domino effect, and then it's going to lead to people needing that money, needing those services. So our priority should be on testing, education, and prevention. Without that, like we both said, COVID is the number one thing that we need to deal with, but we have to deal with it in a proper manner. We can't just throw money at something that we can prevent. If we can teach people, look, this is the proper thing you need to do. Even the Center for Disease Control says that masks work most of the time. So there's a lot of guidance, and that's when it comes to the Center for Disease Control and the World Health Organization, any information they give, it's actually advice and recommendation. It's not law, it's not policy. So what we need to do is to make sure that we have help people get the care that they need, and also to prevention. Looking at the vaccine, what is the state doing about vaccine? Is it going to be available just to a few or to thousands? So there's a lot of things that need to be addressed before we can even talk about healthcare or adding to our taxes, because I think prevention is the number one thing. If we learn how to prevent things, it'll decrease, first of all, the spread of COVID. Second, help people stay healthier. And third, to help the economy get back to where it needs to be.
All right, all right. I think we might have a viewer question comment come in a second or two. As I wait for that, I'll roll into sort of my next policy related question. The following topics are issues that are important to the host, myself, Seko. We don't want to use tonight's show so much for partisan back and forth as ideas for resolutions for said parties. After all, by the time next week, both of you may be set and ready to go full born into an election process. So, what are your thoughts on, say, affordable housing, higher wage jobs, criminal justice, and what would you like to do on a statewide level representing HD 90 on those? And we'll start off with Mr. James.
Yeah, I want to I have a response for that, but first I want to say I was glad to hear Mr. Mario talk about testing, and I agree with him. But as we all know, we didn't have a unified front on testing. On a federal level, we had our federal leaders saying stop testing, and so the public was confused. They're saying, do we test? Do we not test? And that's why for the state of Virginia, we have to keep the politics out of this. We have to save lives. Testing is important, and I'm sorry that our president, current president, says stop testing. If we stop testing, our numbers will go down. The numbers will not go down if you stop testing. So back with affordable housing. I had an opportunity to talk to a lot of citizens in the 90th district and in Virginia Beach, and I can tell you right now, they're not asking for cheap housing. What they're asking me to do is, on a state level, is to bring in more businesses that's going to create a lot of jobs that people can earn a living wage where they can afford good housing, not for affordable housing. Sometimes when people say affordable housing, you're talking about cheap houses you put up that someone can get for $400 a month. They don't want a handout in cheap housing. They want great jobs. And we can do that from a state where we can make our state of Virginia a place where people want to come and do businesses. Think about what they have in Carolina with the Research Triangle. We have Eastern Virginia Medical School, we have NASA Langley, we have Wallops, we have Oldham University, we have Virginia Tech. We can create our own research triangle here for technology, health, and science. And then we can bring those businesses that are centered around the research that we do here, from space technology, internet, and the like. And then you're bringing some great paying jobs. And then you won't have to have cheap housing. You have our residents that can afford good quality housing. It's going to take everyone working together. When you talk about the research triangle in Carolina, that's not just Durham working by itself. So when Norfolk and Virginia Beach, Portsmouth, when we decide we want to work together as a unit, where it comes to transportation, the light rail system, you guys remember that picture of when the train went across the United States of America, and they met at one central point, showing that we're connecting east to west. Imagine that picture if North Virginia Beach could have worked together on light rail, connecting the cities, and the message that will put across the world that we are here for anybody that wants to do business because we're working together as a city. Think about Norfolk sells everybody water. They own all the water in the area. That can only be done if we work together. And we can save money too.
Any touching on criminal justice before we throw it over to Mr. Murray?
Oh, yeah, criminal justice reform. Of course, you guys may or may not know that, I served on the police department for 27 years. Professor in criminal justice at Tidewater Community College and forensic science and paralegal studies. So I know a little bit about criminal justice. When it comes down to criminal justice in the United States of America, it's all about fundamental fairness. People are not asking for special treatment when it comes down to law enforcement. They're just asking to be treated like everybody else. And we have members of our community, minorities, including Latinos, that for somehow or some reason, their arrest history is more than anyone else. It's unbelievable when you have a population of minorities in the United States of America that only represents 13% of the population, but there's 75% of the people in jail. That's not criminal justice reform. I argue for Travion Blunt, who was a 15-year-old that got 6 life sentences plus 118 years for a crime that didn't even involve a bloody nose.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Thank God that the governor issued a pardon under Article 5, Section 12 of the Virginia Constitution to argue against that. So I'm going to be a champion for criminal justice. Now, criminal justice don't mean letting criminals go free. But criminal justice it also don't mean targeting minority groups because they may be the low-hanging fruit or the like. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in criminal justice. You know, the United States of America is the greatest country on earth. And no one's going to argue for that. And I fought, just like Mr. Mario, for our country and put my life on the line for our country, the one I love. I love the United States of America, and I will protect her. I love the city of Norfolk, and will protect her too because I served as a police officer for 27 years. And so when it comes down to criminal justice reform, it's unfortunate that every major strive that we've had in the United States of America, someone has to be taken to the United States Supreme Court and get the crap sued out of them just to do the right thing. When I get into the House of Delegates, I'm going to make sure we do the right thing for all citizens.
Mr. Mario, I would like you to expound upon your vision when it comes to affordable housing, higher paying jobs, and also criminal justice as a possible future member of the Virginia House of Delegates.
Well, I think the key to those three is a living wage. A lot of the things that people want is just a good wage. I think if people can afford a good house, can take care of themselves, there's a lot of the issues, you know, in regards to criminal justice or affordable housing that's taken care of by that. But the one thing in regards to that is, how will it affect the smaller businesses? You know, a large business. Well, we saw that a couple of years ago when Target decided to increase their wages. What happened? They started bringing in automated checkouts. They cut the staffing in half, and the people that stayed working, their hours were cut in half. So we have to be extremely careful when we start saying, you know, a living wage. It takes a lot, and you know, it's going to cause more heartache. It's going to cause more businesses to shut down, especially the smaller ones, and that will impact everything else: the affordable housing, criminal justice. You know, there have been a lot of negative things in regards to, you know, minorities and arrests and even the murders that have happened. But one of the things that is included in that is, or the talk is to defund the police. Well, you know, to me, if you defund the police, and of course, our General Assembly is trying to pass legislation against Second Amendment rights, whether you, let's say, open carry or concealed carry, you could be charged with a misdemeanor. So now, you know, you're having issues that you're going from one extreme to the other. But now you have people, citizens that abide by the law are now falling into the criminal system. And so there's a lot of things that are going on that we have to address to make sure that what we're doing is helping the citizens, not hurting the system.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Can I answer one of those questions that one of the residents said about making it illegal to drug test?
Well, we're going to pose these questions right now. So let's start with the very first one from Stephanie. And she said we can circumvent the whole losing job thing over marijuana by making it illegal for statewide businesses to test for marijuana. And she seems to represent the Hampton Roads Poor People's Campaign. What are your thoughts? Mr. Mario, you can start. And then Mr. James, you can follow.
Well, I think you know, that cannot happen. We cannot legalize marijuana throughout the state. In some businesses, you know, need people that can do the job clear-headed. So we have to be extremely careful when we say legalize or illegalize companies for testing. I think that has to be left to the companies themselves, for safety reasons, for health reasons.
All right, Mr. James.
Yeah, and let's just make sure we're clear on this. If a business stopped drug testing, particularly ones that have heavy machinery, driving trucks, and they'll lose their liability insurance and they'll close down. If the state institute a law saying you can't drug test, basically what we're doing is putting thousands of businesses out of business. That's what we do.
Interesting. Good answers. Good answers. Before we move on, Brother Conrad, can we ask, my fave question?
Yes.
Qualified
You're breaking
immunity.
up a little bit.
What are your positions on qualified immunity?
I'm
With
sorry,
law
you broke up.
enforcement-
What was that question?
Qualified immunity, your thoughts on it? I guess
Go ahead,
let's
Mr.
go
Mario.
with let's go with Mr. Mario.
I'm sorry. What was the question again?
The question is, what are your thoughts on qualified immunity and whether or not, or keep it, or discontinue it?
It's a tough question. For me, to be honest, I would have to look more into it. I'm not, when it comes to that, I'm not an expert at it, so I couldn't give an honest answer.
Okay. Let's go with Mr. James, the former police officer.
This is not fair. Okay. Qualified immunity. Local governments, not only law enforcement agencies, but local government agencies have what we call qualified immunity. And the reason why local governments have qualified immunity is because it protects the government from being sued for doing hazardous jobs. For example, with law enforcement officers is a hazardous duty. Garbage collection is a hazardous duty. And so the immunity qualifies, you're qualified from being sued if what you're doing is in keeping with your policies and procedures with your job. Police officers are protected from being sued if they qualify by not breaking the law, not violating civil rights, and not violating policies and procedures. If they don't do any of those things, the United States Supreme Court said it's clear that they have a qualified immunity, not absolute immunity, but qualified immunity. Local governments, police departments get sued all the time when officers break the law and violate civil rights. Then they are not qualified for the immunity. A lot of times, garbage trucks running down the streets of small streets in the city of Virginia Beach, sometimes they may scrape your car. It's a big truck going down small streets. They're doing a service. As long as the driver wasn't under the influence of marijuana or smoking pot or drunk, the city gets its qualified immunities. Sometimes the local governments will get involved in paying those debts or small prices or not, but they do have that qualified immunity. And what happens is it makes doing those jobs more affordable for the taxpayers. Because if they didn't have that qualified immunity, collecting garbage would be so expensive because of all the legalities involved in it that the citizens wouldn't even be able to afford garbage collection, or municipalities won't be able to afford law enforcement or the like. It doesn't mean that law enforcement officers can do what they want, because if they break the law or they violate civil rights, they don't have that immunity. So you can't take away qualified immunity for law enforcement officers. What you're doing is you're going to cause the locality to go broke.
All right. I believe that there was a point you wanted to touch on right before we got to that question that I'm not sure you were able to touch on it. I want to give you the chance to, I think it may have been a slightly different topic, Mr. James, but go ahead and expand on it.
I don't know if I could, I thought I did, but one of the things of course I want to say is that, in the state of Virginia, we have to be fiscally responsible. In law enforcement, and I know there's some people that's concerned about the Second Amendment, particularly when it comes to assault rifles. But Mr. Mario can probably agree with me on this, is that, no one wants to turn Virginia into a place where a person can ride on the back of a pickup truck with assault rifles and drive down the streets. Our law enforcement officers, and I served on the street as a law enforcement officer for 27 years. And one of the scariest things I ever saw in the back of a car was an AK-47. One, I knew I was outgunned. Two, I knew I couldn't have any type of bulletproof vest to protect me. And three, the only thing that would protect me if I drove down the street in a tank. No one wants our police officers driving down the street in a tank. And so that is something that we can all come together on to protect our families and friends against certain things that we want to make sure that we have. The founding fathers, when they talked about the Second Amendment, they just didn't say, the right to bear arms. They started off with the terms a well-regulated militia. It was well-regulated. And the reason why they say it well-regulated militia is you read James Madison Notes to the Constitutional Conventions, and you also read the Federalist Papers. The founding fathers talked about the militia that was up in Massachusetts that got out of control. And so they said they had to call in the regular army to get the militia under control. And that was a crisis. And so James Madison, I believe, said, what reasonable cause of apprehension can we have by regulating the militia? He said it in the Federalist paper, in James Madison Notes. So we have to be very, very careful. Some people like leaving out the first four words, well-regulated. If we couldn't regulate militias now, you don't have to get a license and the like. I believe in protecting the rights of citizens. But when you have your elected officials that we're supposed to be the voice of the people, if the citizens say they are afraid of assault rifles and the like, and by the way, no one ever mentioned handguns, hunting rifles, shotguns, and things like that. No one ever mentioned that. Most people are concerned about assault rifles that are very, very made for war. Do you want our citizens walking down the street with a fully armed assault rifle riding on the back of a pickup truck? And do police officers really want to come in contact with a person carrying an assault rifle? And Mario can probably tell you the range of one of those things is probably about 150, 200 yards. When the average police officer is carrying a pistol, they have a range of maybe 25 yards, if that, at best. So it's something that we need to have these discussions over. As a representative or elected representative, it should be the voice of the citizens. And so the citizens should be able to decide how we do regulate the militia.
Mr. Moore, I would like you to tackle that concept as well. Just provide your thoughts. Maybe you want to touch on qualified immunity again, but also just your general concept about the Second Amendment. And it's always important here in Virginia.
Well, yes. Like I said before, for me, Second Amendment is not about guns. It's actually about protecting yourself. You have that right. And when you limit that, then people become fearful. And that's why we have the issues of gun issues today. When there are laws that have been passed already regarding carrying, if you conceal carry and you have a magazine that has 10 or more rounds, now it's considered a misdemeanor. So, we talk about high capacity guns, but now we're dealing with personal protection on a small level. If Mr. James' handgun was taken away when he was a police officer, that would be the only thing that protected him. And I think that's what we're doing to the citizen. We're taking that ability from them. We're not telling them that, you can't have a AR-15. We're telling them you can't carry a handgun that holds 10 rounds. And so we have to make, legislation clear that you can protect yourself and you can decide how to protect yourself without interference of the government.
All right. I think Mr. Seko here is getting ready for one of these Volkswagen images here. I happen to drive a Volkswagen Jetta, and I got it from Southern Volkswagen in Chesapeake, Virginia, 1248 South Military Highway. It got me from my place of work at the ocean front to my house today in the Rosemont area, Virginia Beach, where I can help formulate this show for tonight. If you want to make sure you get yourself a car that can get you around town and all the towns of Norfolk, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, and all the rest of the 757, go to Southern Volkswagen, speak with Cynthia Rawlings and Charlie Roy, and get yourself a nice around-the-town car. Good buddy Seko here also has a business. He helps lots of personal financing, so make sure you get in touch with him to help your real estate interest and perhaps even money lending interest go by smoothly. Before we close out, I want to give you guys a good opportunity to speak on your favorites regarding HD90. We like to highlight business here, as you see, too. So, Mr. Mario, Mr. James, touch on your favorite parts of HD90 business and community-wise parks, just anything that comes to mind that you want to shout out that you greatly enjoy about here. Let's start with Mr. James.
Well, I would like to give a shout out to all of the small businesses in Norfolk and Virginia Beach, which I and my family frequent a lot. I appreciate the small businesses. My wife, of course, is helping keep the economy going very well. You know, with making sure we have the things we need, and we do shop with all and support our small businesses. And I have to be honest with you, we are a Navy and military town, and our small businesses are very military friendly people. And that's why every opportunity I have, whether it's going out to eat at restaurants, buying materials from my house, or having repairs done, and those things, we always go and frequent our small businesses. We enjoy going to the Virginia Beach oceanfront and spending our money and time there. I always enjoy when I have family and friends that come into town pre-COVID. We always want to go to the city of Virginia Beach and walk and enjoy the oceanfront. And so that's one of the reasons. I remember, one of the citizens was talking about light rail. I was so excited to be able to just jump on a train and ride down to the oceanfront and spend money and have a good time, maybe even have a beer while I'm down there. And I don't have to drive. I get back on the train, ride back home, get off, walk to my house, and just really enjoy myself. Or when it comes down to the light rail train station right here at Newtown Road, you can't find a parking spot because all the Virginia Beach residents parking and getting on the light rail going to downtown Norfolk. That's great. Baseball games, they're riding them. They should be able to ride it from the oceanfront back to Norfolk. Our military personnel should be able to get on the light rail train and take it all the way to the Navy base and read their newspaper like everybody else, and enjoy themselves and have a carefree ride back and forth. I just wish that somehow we can reach a happy medium with the citizens. I agree that there was some cost overruns that really infuriated me, and it made me very mad. But those things we can deal with. As a legislator, I can deal with those people who are doing bad things in terms of cost overruns and the like. We can deal with that, and I wish I was in office when it happened, because I would have made sure it didn't, because the majority of the light rail is in the 90th district. And so those are the things we can do to make sure that we are a good community and we are working together as cities. So I really enjoy all my small businesses. It would take me hours to talk about all the small businesses I support in Norfolk and Virginia Beach. So I'm going to give a shout out to all of them for all the things they do and the great service they provide.
Mr. Morrow, I would like you to look at the big chunk of Eastern Norfolk and slight Western Virginia Beach of HD90, your community around you. What is it about you that speaks to you that's good and you just want to shout out?
I can't hear you.
Well, the same thing. A lot of small businesses here are working hard to provide some great services. We have small barbershops, we have small restaurants, but then we also have some established places like the bank off of Little Creek, a great country club. I see a lot of young military, cowboys going in there, having a great time. And also the Latino restaurants right now are hurting. A lot of them cannot do either DoorDash or have a way to deliver. So if you can frequent a lot of these small Latino restaurants, there's a lot of different tastes that you can have. If you have a taste for Puerto Rican, Colombian, Salvadorian, Honduran, Guatemalan, and so if you have a taste for any flavor in the world, you can find it here in Norfolk. Norfolk is a growing town. It really is. It's diverse, which is something I love. And with the military, you have so many flavors of ethnicity, and that's what I love about Norfolk. Is that you can go to a restaurant and people tell you about other restaurants in the area that you might not know of. So frequent these small places because they definitely help each other stay alive and stay above water.
We're about to reach the very last question of the. Hopefully, you can hear me better now. We're reaching the last question of tonight. I want you guys to give your last pitch, speaking directly to Democrats, speaking directly to Republicans.
Am I the only one that can't hear you?
I'm not on mute. Mr. Mario, can you hear me?
Yeah, sometimes it happens like that, but Mr. James, everybody can hear. Everybody can hear, except for you. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm going to try and type the question too. So the question is this. Give us your last pitch to both the Democrats who want to probably vote for you in a caucus format this Saturday and the Republicans who might want to vote for you in a primary caucus format this Sunday. Let's start, because you can hear me, with Mr. Mario.
Well, what I would say is I'm not a politician. I never claimed to be one. I'm a serviceman. I've served my country. After I retired from the Navy, I actually worked for the Virginia Department of Veteran Services as a veteran service officer, helping military men transition, widows of vets, to apply for benefits, whether it be state, federal, Social Security. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to serve the people of the 90th. I understand them. I understand how hard they work. And I know it's a learning curve, but I have to learn. I'm ready to fight. That's my goal, is to be able to go there to represent the 90th. I'm not representing anyone else but the people of the 90th. And I want people to understand that I think like them, and that's how anything that is put in front of me is going to be my priority, thinking of the people of the 90th and how hard they work and the things that they need.
Yeah.
For you, Mr. James?
Well, I think you guys may be asking me a question next. I hope you can hear me. And the question I'm seeing is, why should your party vote for you? And I think the main thing is that because they understand that I'm ready on day one. Let's be real. In the United States of America, we are a country of rules and laws. And if you want to think about all the rules of the General Assembly and being able to help the people in the district and the state of Virginia, for that matter, you have to know the rules. The person that's going to get elected on this is going to be thrown in the fire on day one. The election is going to be January 5th. Next week, you can be in the General Assembly. Let me add one other thing. Pre-bill starts now. There are legislators writing bills now, getting ready for January. And then there's a lot you have to read and a lot you have to understand. And so I believe I'm the only one that has worked in the Senate for the last 4 years. I clearly shown that I understand the rules and I'm ready on day one. There's no on-the-job training. My on-the-job training started when I was 17 years old. And it led me up to today. And it took over 40 years for me to say, I'm ready to go and serve the people of Norfolk and Virginia Beach and the state of Virginia. I'm ready on day one. If you ask me a question about what kind of legislation we can put together, I can do it. Not only I can do it, I've done it. I represent all citizens. They are my constituents. The process we have is I'm the voice of the people. They tell me what they want me to do in Richmond, and I go up to Richmond and I fight on their behalf. Most of the ideas are not my ideas. They're the ideas of the people, and that's who I plan on representing.
All right. Well, I would like to thank both you gentlemen for coming on the show and letting all the viewers in both Norfolk and Virginia Beach in this area hear from you so they can make the best educated decision this upcoming weekend for your respective races. And of course, should both of you be successful, I would very much like for you guys to come on again in the future, getting ready for January. So
Good.
thank you
Ask
guys
some
so
tough
much.
questions next time.
I'll work those up immediately. Again,
thank you, gentlemen, and
so
thank you,
much.
Mario.
Nice to
I
meet
appreciate
you, Mr. James. All right, you guys take care of yourselves. Be safe.
This show was brought to you by Positive Vibes Incorporated, our consulting services. We do credit fixes, we do tax resolution, we lend private money, and debt consolidation. So if you need some of these services, we're waiting here for you. Credit fixes, tax resolutions, private money, and debt consolidation. Make sure you call Positive Vibes Incorporated. Take care.